you.
I'm gonna let Kathy introduce herself, but she is
Do I?
an amazing lady of RealWealth Network. 20 years.
20 years.
20 years. 20
Yeah.
years. Being able to help other people find their financial freedom through turnkey assets in multiple different states. She's incredibly knowledgeable on this subject. Who better than Kathy?
Thank you.
Okay.
Do I need a clicker?
There's no clicker. You're gonna have.
Oh, I just go right here.
I'll do it for
And
you.
you'll do it? Oh, thank you. All right. Team, see? All right. Hello, good evening. It looks like we're going to all stay nice and warm. We've been waiting for this, right? For months. So we're going to be nice and toasty. All right. Did anybody see my mid-year forecast? Okay. So a couple of people might have already seen this, but sounds like most of you didn't. So that's great. How many people here are concerned and holding back, not investing because of the uncertainty of the economy? Got a few. Concerned? It's a few. How many of you are not concerned and it's business as usual? Got quite a few. Wow, that's incredible. All right, so I'm going to just kind of give a little. Oh, yeah, you got it. Thank you. I got to use your team when you got a team, right? Okay, so my background was in broadcasting. I went to San Francisco State, got my broadcasting. Who's that? Did you go there? All right. Okay. Got my broadcast degree. Worked in newsrooms in San Francisco. I'm just now writing a book for Bigger Pockets. Just got to deal with them. Yeah. On business and how it all started, and it started in the newsrooms where I thought that would be really cool until I found out that I had zero control over my time. And anyone who's worked in a newsroom knows that it is busy, long hours. Sometimes I was there at 3 in the morning. Sometimes I was there till 1 in the morning from working all day. It was not financial freedom by any means. But that's where I got I got a lot of training. And since then, I've been able to come into the newsrooms as somebody who can help interpret what's going on in real estate, because having been in a newsroom, oftentimes we get 20 minutes to try to understand a topic and explain it. And that's why a lot of times they don't get it right. So I get to come in now on the other side of it and explain some of the craziness. So we're going to go over that now too. I think data can really help ease fear. I know it can, because it will help you make decisions. And I can tell you all of the things that have been hard for me, and I'm still working through projects that are hard. It's because I didn't do the work on the front end carefully enough or thorough enough so that it's hard to fix a project that isn't fixable, right? So the work in the front, the hard work in the front makes the rest of it easy. The easy work on the front makes the rest of it really, really hard. Anybody been there? Yeah. Okay, good. Nice to know I'm not alone. So this year has been confusing, and it is. I get lots of comments on YouTube and on all the media that I'm on of people that think I'm crazy for investing right now because of this news. When people see this news, bank failures, Fed raising rates in spite of the bank failures, why a recession's probably coming, economic chaos until the Congress raises the debt ceiling, which they did, and it's, what does that mean? They're going to keep doing it. And then BRICS. Anybody familiar with the idea that we might lose our reserve currency and the impact that would have on our way of life? That it's gamed in our favor. Let's just put it that way, by having the world's reserve currency. And there's other countries that would like to have that and are working hard on it. And that would really, there would be an effect. So these things are scary, and it makes it hard to know what to do. So next slide, thank you. We're starting to see some of those headlines change, though, just recently. And it's been interesting. Now instead of the recessions coming, the case for a recession is crumbling. So why would that be? What's happening? And what's happening is the next, just employment is strong. Usually when you think of a recession, you think of people not having money to spend, right? And hard times. But when you have lots of jobs and people working, generally that's not the case, especially if you do lose your job. There's a whole bunch of other jobs that you could go get. It usually means there's not a recession, certainly not a bad one. This slide from Marcus and Millichap, anybody watch their updates? They're so good, so good. Basically that the average, you can see the pre-pandemic norm, we're not at the norm. The average is 1.2 million. We're still at 1.7. So job growth is slowing, but still stronger than it's been. This is one of the main reasons. And the trailing three-month average of job creation, again, 244,000 versus an average of 211,000. So when you just hear the jobs numbers, it doesn't mean anything unless you look at it from years prior or compare it to other years. And the US is still, in spite of everything, creating an enormous amount of jobs. All right. And with that is 9.8 million job openings. So again, you can't have a recession in this kind of environment unless all of a sudden all these jobs just went away. And that has not happened. As you can see, as hard as the Fed tries to kill the job market, it's just not getting there. They're just not succeeding at that, which is weird, right, that they would want to do that. But the theory is the Fed wants to raise rates to slow down the economy. When the economy slows, people stop spending, companies have to lay off people, and people have less money. It's just an archaic way of doing things. But that's the way they figure, if we kill the jobs, that'll slow things down. But they just haven't succeeded. And so, and that's in spite of just what feels like a speeding car that the brakes just got hit super hard. You would think there would be pain in that. There has been, certainly there's been pain. Some industries are really feeling it. But when you take a fast-moving vehicle and you stop it really fast, it's jarring, which is what we felt. So in spite of that, and going from 0 overnight rates to 5, the economy is still just booming. Again, except for certain industries and certain real estate that is affected by these changes. Obviously, commercial real estate, any adjustable rate mortgages, other countries. Other countries are experiencing a world of hurt right now because they are basically on adjustable rate mortgages. So homeowners in Canada, homeowners in Europe are really feeling this, because it would be like going from a 3% rate to an 8% rate, but you got to pay it. It's kind of like what we went through in 2008. There are a lot of other countries are feeling it, but we're not, because here in the US, what do we have? Fixed rates. And we take it for granted like it's normal, and it is the most special thing. And if I were you, I'd get as many of these fixed rates as I could get. Load them up. Get them all. Get as many as you can, because if you knew how rare and special it is and weird that you can lock in a rate regardless of what's happening in the market, like how they do that, I don't know. There's probably someone here who understands it. But to be, that we're sitting here, how many people have a 2% on your house? How many 3%? 4%. I mean, to think that in an environment where rates are now, for some 7%, and we still have these low rates, how does that work? I don't know. I don't care. We just have it. We love it. It's great. It's a wealth builder, 100%. So next slide. This is kind of a cool slide, because it's been confusing to see, like, how is it that rates have gone up so much and yet the job market is still screeching along? One of the, Logan Motoshami, I don't know if you've had him come and speak. He's wonderful. He's wonderful from Housing Wire. He says, if COVID didn't happen, the total employment numbers in the US should be between 158 and 159 million. So if we didn't have that blip, we'd be there. Today, we're at 156 million. So basically, according to Logan, we're just still catching up. So all this job growth is a lot of the industries coming back that got shut down, a lot of the entertainment, travel, restaurants, and so forth. So we're just on track. And he wants to have a little talk with the Fed to make sure they understand this, that we're just coming back. So that's one way to look at it. But what is really fascinating, again, it's just fascinating that with all the increases, all the attempts to just kill the economy, that this was just today, I think this came out, U.S. jobless claims fall again. again, as labor market continues to flash strength. So this idea that they could keep raising rates to increase the unemployment rate, it's just not working. People aren't even losing their jobs, let alone losing them and just getting a new one, because they can do that too. There's so many job openings. All right, so for our purposes, which is the basis for me of investing, and I'm mostly a 1 to 4 unit single family 1 to 4 unit investor. We do lots of other types of things with syndication, but I'm going to be gearing most of this presentation to that, which is if you own investment properties that are residential. And is California the place to do it? I personally don't love investing in California. We've built subdivisions in California. We're about to do an entitlement deal in California. But in general, we like to invest in other places where they're more landlord friendly. And the specific things I look for is job growth, job growth, job growth. Because where the jobs are, the people go, they need housing, and they can pay the rent. So to me, that is the focus. And this is a great chart of where are the top metros for job growth. Las Vegas came in #1. I found that interesting because at the same time, their real estate has gone down a bit in value, but the jobs are still there. Again, I'm guessing that these are probably lower paid jobs because it's a lot of the tourist industry that's coming back, convention industry that's coming back. But still, Las Vegas #1. #2, Dallas, no surprise there. Then Austin, also no surprise. Fort Worth, whoa, that's 3 Texas ones in the top 4. Orlando, Nashville, Tampa, Miami, Houston, and Jacksonville. Big theme there. That's crazy. I do not see California on there. Did you? No. Didn't see it. All right, next slide. So, excuse me, part of the reason that, I think that's my water down there. I'm going to grab that. I had pizza yesterday. I'm allergic to dairy and gluten, so oops. Okay, it was good though. Like barbecue chicken with, so good. All right, so part of the reason, of course, that things are so robust, it wasn't just by accident that our economy is going at full speed still, even when the brakes have been on for 18 months, is this chart. Anybody familiar with it? This is the M2, which is the amount of money in circulation, and you can see back in the 80s, 70s, it was under it was like 2 trillion, it looks like. And slowly, we got more addicted to more money. But in the last, just from 2020 to 2021, the amount of money that was created out of thin air, basically, and put into the system was the amount of money in entirety in 2007. So think of the entire economy in 2007, and that much money was created in about 18 months. So part of this, coming out of a time when nobody could work and economies were shut down, it came roaring back because, wow, you just put an entire amount of money back into the system. And it was a lot of crack is the best way I could say it. It's just, and it hasn't worn off yet. So that's just my opinion on it. That's a lot of money. It's starting, M2 started to come down, but not much. Still record high. And that's like a tsunami. When a tsunami comes in, it's big and strong, and it'll wipe some things out in its path. And of course, we've seen that. All right. So of course, we know that mortgage rates doubled, even though they're right now at a pretty normal place. It's just never changed quite so quickly in the last, I don't know, at least in the time that I've been investing. So the pace of change was the fastest, even though where we are is pretty normal. I started investing when I remember my dad being thrilled that he could get out of the double digits. He refied into a 9% and was just bouncing around the house with glee. He's so happy. So the rates, it's not really so much the rates, it's just that it went from cold, hot to cold really fast, and it was a shock. So, but what's so interesting, in spite of that, in spite of rates more than doubling and payments more than doubling, when home prices peaked and asset values peaked higher than they've been, 40% gains in some places each year. Boise, Austin, 40% increases. Usually you see a crash after that, and that's what a lot of people have been waiting for. Obviously, some markets have definitely experienced a slowdown. But with this again, this is an article that just came out today. High rates, low supply, home prices skyrocket to unimaginable peaks as U.S. homeowners stop selling out of fear of higher mortgage rates. So here we are at a time, 18 months ago, would you have thought you'd see this headline? A lot of us, who thought we'd see a correction, like a serious correction? A few people. A lot of you didn't. Okay. Well, I thought there would be, I think on my Bigger Pockets, did anybody listen to On the Market? Bigger Pockets? Got a few? Okay, great. They made us do predictions, and that's always great when it's on record, but I think I think mine was, I thought we'd see a 7.5% decline by the end of the year. So we were kind of on track. We were moving in that direction, but it's just coming back. I don't know what you guys are seeing out there, but it's nuts. Just in Malibu, there's a house that went up that, gosh, I remember looking at that house. It was $750,000 in Malibu. Isn't that crazy? It's small and old. And that was 2016. It just went on the market for 1.8, and there were multiple offers, people flying in from the East Coast. And it ended up going for 2.1, all cash. So it's nuts. Is anybody else seeing that kind of thing? You are? You are? And I was, Christina wanted me to come and talk about markets, but it seems to be happening in every market, almost every market. We think Boise and Austin are the ones that are hit the hardest, but they're starting to come back too. Same with Seattle. Jimmy on the show is like, for a minute there, flipping was really hard, and now it's back. Houses full of people ready to buy. How do they have so much money? The only thing I can figure is, again, all that money, all the stimulus. A lot of that money in the M2 went to business owners who already kind of had money. And that's the theory this time around. They're still giving it out. You could still apply, for the stimulus. And so lots of money going to businesses and business owners that kind of already have money. And a lot of times when that's the case, it goes into real estate. All right. So this is another big one. This is a really interesting slide. And this is probably why there's a lot of memes on baby boomers and a lot of hate for them. Sorry for the boomers in the room. I have kids, and I was like, why are you talking about boomers that way? This is it. Boomers hold 50% of the wealth. So those with the money usually get a bad rap, right? So 50%. When I try to tell these youngsters, it took them 30, 40 years. So what, you want people to be mad at you in 40 years when you've invested well and now you have money? Well, that's basically what it is. Baby boomers, we're old. So we've been doing this a long time and own 50% of the wealth. And they're 24% of the population. So let's take a look at baby boomers and what they're doing on the next slide. So the homeownership rate, 65 and over is the green line, and that's the home ownership rate. You can see it's close to 80% of 65 and up. Then 55 to 64 is the orange. Then 45 to 54 is the blue. And again, this is home ownership rate. The average is the red, and then black is 35 to 40. And then you can see under 35, they're getting started. Just getting started seems normal. That's about when people start to buy their homes. But you could see that the older generation has a really, really high percentage of home ownership. And on the next slide, they're not moving. So you've got this group of people with the most money who own a bunch of property, and they're keeping it because they're in low rates and lots of equity, and they're rich, right? Yeah. So this is part of what you're seeing out there. A very large generation who has made money and lost money and been through a lot, but over the last 10 years or so, they might have made it back. And so the share of owner-occupied households who have not moved since 1999, for 65 and older, the largest group is shockingly Los Angeles. I would not have thought that, right? Then next is Washington, D.C., Minneapolis, Seattle, Charlotte, Houston, Dallas. But again, you could kind of see all these cities, they're not moving. Do you remember all the headlines over the last decade saying the silver tsunami? Do you remember that one? And all the boomers were just going to die at once or something, and then all this, remember that? There'd be millions of properties on the market. Nope. Boomers are healthy because they got all this money, so now. What's the new hot thing is how you can, what is it called? You can make yourself live forever. Longevity stuff. Yeah. They got the money for it. So they're living longer and healthy and exercising and cold plunging and saunas and all that. So anyway, the silver tsunami is going to be a while. Which is why one of the reasons we're seeing listings down. Historically low. This is 2023, this line here. This is an older slide. But what was strange about this slide, and it's only continued, is normally in the spring, listings go up, right? People put their house on the market and they sell. It just didn't happen this year. It didn't happen over the summer. Inventory's down again. So it's just bucking the trends again of, if you just go back to this line, 2017, with over 1.2 million, and then down to here. The lowest, obviously, 2020, 21, but 2023, not much better. And of course, the lock-in effect, we just talked about that. It's hard to walk away from a 3% rate, even if you want a different house. Maybe you just rent it. I keep hearing people say, they hadn't ever been landlords before, but they can't walk away from that. So if they're going to move, they're just going to keep it, rent it, and buy another house. So this is what we're seeing: 39% at 3 to 4%, 18% at 4 to 5, 5% at 5 to 6, and only 5% over 6. And for people who love to bash me online because they think that we're like, how dare you encourage people to buy real estate at the peak and it's going to crash and they're going to lose all their money. This is the slide that person hasn't seen. And that is that today's homeowner is in the best financial shape ever. Because look at this. This says mortgage debt service payment as a percent of disposable income. Because they're locked into low rates. And they bought when it was cheaper. Stuff is more expensive and rates have doubled. So people buying today, they're not feeling this, but homeowners who have been in their homes for more than 2 years, they are on that side of the chart with the lowest payments compared to income that we've seen since the 70s. I mean, ever. It's incredible. So it's not the current homeowner who's in trouble if they're looking like that. It's the one who wants to be a homeowner, right? It's the one who wants to own property. It's tough. It's very tough for renters, very tough for people who don't own. But there's no housing crash coming because of that slide. If you go back to that one slide, if you see here, this is 2005. So when housing was on adjustable rates then, most people were on adjustable rates. I was a mortgage broker back then. And you'd be crazy not to just get an adjustable rate mortgage. That's what everybody got. And you were qualified on the teaser rate, and nobody really worried about when that would adjust. You just figured when it adjusts, I'll just refi again. That's just what people did. And all of a sudden, those loans adjusted, and look at what happened to the payment. And people couldn't handle it. So we know what happened. So to compare the peak to where we are now, it's just not the same market. Not even close. All right, so 1/3 of home buyers paying cash right now. Did anyone see this Redfin story? 1/3 of home buyers are paying cash. A lot of people think we have a really stuck market, but there's over 4 million homes that are still trading this year. Like, people are still buying homes, and people just don't realize that. And 1/3 of those are all cash. Who's got that money? Oh, remember I mentioned. We know who's got that money. The boomers. So they can, sell their house all cash, go buy another house all cash. So if somebody's moving, it might be the boomers because they don't care about the rate. And where are they going? Because that's going to affect the market, right? The adult active community where boomers are moving, Austin here is number 1. Kind of think of it as a young little millennial city, but a lot of boomers. Orlando's next, Charlotte, Cape Coral, Nashville, Myrtle Beach, Indianapolis, Dallas, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, Raleigh. Some of these you could see just the market. There's fewer boomers in, and that goes from Raleigh, Tampa, Houston, Richmond, Denver, Salt Lake City, Columbus, Greenville, and Cleveland. So that was the boomers. Then you've got, so right now, this group, this lump, is today's home buyers, today's first-time home buyers. It's the millennials age 30 to 34, which is the typical first. Is there one here? All right.
I'm close.
So if you went to college, whatever this group did, if you played soccer or football, you had the hardest time because you had the most competition. So congratulations for you if you did anything, you did. And now you're trying to get a house, right? This whole group my daughter's right here. So she played varsity soccer. I was like, girl, that is awesome. I know she got into college. I knew that was hard because there's more people than any of us had to deal with. When I went to college, they were just happy to take your money, right? They were like,
They're still happy.
Yeah, they're still happy, yes. So that group has had to deal with competition their whole lives, and now they're dealing with it in the housing market. But it's important. Demographics is everything, right? This age group is going to basically control the economy because there's so many of them. And that's what's happening. And unfortunately, this is happening when there's nothing for them. Like I said, the inventory is non-existent, and these people are having babies. Did anyone notice there's a baby boom happening? Anybody notice? You know why? These guys. 30 to 34, guess who's having babies? Somebody said once there were headlines that millennials weren't having babies, because they were 20. They're doing it now. I feel like I have put on so many baby showers this year. Everyone's having. I'm not having a baby. My daughter's having a baby. I'm having a baby through my daughter's body, so I get to have another grandbaby on the way. But yeah, to me, I think the next big story is that this is going to go like this. I think we're having a big baby boom, and so all these people would really love a place to live, and it's just the timing couldn't be worse. If we went back to 2007. There was 4 million homes on the market. That would have been wonderful today. Unfortunately, back then, it was to these guys, the Gen Xers. So 4 million homes were on the market, and there just weren't enough people in first-time home buying age to take them all. Today, it's the opposite, where we don't have the inventory. We've got 1/5 of that and way more people. So again, just trying to give some clarity on why every single market, again, Christina's like, focus on the markets. I'm like, it's every market. Every market, it does not have enough inventory right now. Okay. Home purchase applications. You could see the Gen Z is this, they weren't buying, they were too young. They're starting to buy. So now we've got another group of young people who are really smart, really educated, been to college, and they get it. They have more information at their fingertips than any of us have ever had. And I see more young people in rooms that I speak to than I've ever seen, and they're investing. It's incredible. So this group is getting in there too. But you could see millennials are the blue, and they're the biggest buyers. So that's the housing theme: inventory down, and a massive group of people that would like what's not there. So new home pending sales. This is new homes. What was really interesting, the data that came out, is that existing home sales are down 20% because it just doesn't exist, the existing home sales. So new home sales are up 20%. So that's kind of a fascinating thing. Builders were really freaking out. We have 4 subdivisions that I syndicated that came to a standstill last year. It was terrifying because the bank still wants their money. And then all of a sudden it's turned because people still want to buy, so they're moving to new homes. And that's a lot of what we're doing at RealWealth, helping investors. That's what we do, is help investors buy investment property. And we're just focusing a lot on new homes because that's what there is. We've been waiting. I mean, this is terrible thing to say, but kind of waiting for the auctions and the foreclosures. Just such a sharky thing to say, right? But that's what investors do. Not happening. It's not happening. I don't know if anybody here is a foreclosure investor, but it's. Are you finding much? You are? Oh, good. Well, talk to her. Okay. I mean, there's always going to be foreclosures, but it's not like what people were expecting. Okay, so new home, pending home sales, #1 market, Dallas again. Wow, not a surprise. Salt Lake City, Raleigh, Charlotte, Washington, Sacramento. Are you hearing some of the same cities over and over again, right? Cincinnati, Tampa, Riverside's on there. Minneapolis, Los Angeles, Baltimore, Jacksonville. I mean, again, it's just like, I don't think you can go wrong investing in any of these places. When you really dive into it further, you say, okay, these are areas where there's clearly demand, there's job growth. What is going to make my life easier in these markets? And for me, I want to be in landlord-friendly markets, because if it's booming in every market, how about I just choose one that works for me best? So landlord-friendly, Dallas at the top, Salt Lake, I love as well. Raleigh, Charlotte, these are all areas that are pretty landlord-friendly. Washington, not so much. Sacramento, not so much. But San Antonio, Cincinnati, Tampa, Riverside, not so much. But I'm sure there's lots of buy and hold investors here who are doing just fine in California. So there's still opportunity in any of these places. But again, I personally like the landlord-friendly places where there's lots of job growth. Sales pace. I think this is a really interesting slide from Zonda. I don't know if anybody listens to their stuff, but they came out with this slide that was basically comparing now with 2019, before all the algorithms got thrown off. And a lot of people, wondering, are we, if COVID hadn't happened, where would we be? Would all this be happening? So 2019 is the yellow, and current is the purple, and this is the sales pace. 2021 is the blue, but if you just compared the yellow with the purple, the yellow would have been 2019 and the purple now. So, excuse me, oh my goodness. It's a weird allergy, isn't it, that I cough from, I don't know, I don't think that's normal. But it was good pizza. Okay. You can see there were more sales in Salt Lake City in 2019 than now, in Phoenix than now. But there's some markets where it's kind of the same. San Francisco, and some where it's even sales are stronger today than they were in 2019, which is fascinating. You can see some of them: Houston, Nashville, Washington, Dallas, Atlanta, Denver, and I think LA's on there. Isn't that just kind of surprising? Sales pace is stronger than 2019. Jacksonville is really strong. Orlando. So, there's a belief that everybody's leaving Los Angeles and going to these places, but you could see, again, it's like it's everywhere. They're buying here too. So yeah, U.S. housing starts surge as builders rev up single-family home construction because there's all kinds of numbers out there, but this is one of them, that the housing market is short of 6.5 million homes. And so new home sales are what is selling because it exists. It's available. And sales were up 11%, and home prices up 2.5% in new homes. So this slide, again, it's interesting, but when mortgage rates went up, there were like 82 million people that could afford to buy the average house. When rates went up, it went to 65 million. So you had about 17 million people priced out in that change. That's why people thought, that's why there was a sales crash, right? There's not a price crash, but a sales crash. That's why mortgage brokers and real estate agents were having a tough time, and builders. And then we went from, this is cost, this is owning versus renting. So the red, I don't know if anybody remembers, 2010, it was incredibly cheaper to own than rent. It was such a strange time. That's what those red lines were. I was taking investors on buses, 50-person buses, driving through neighborhoods, going, look, you could buy this house for $70,000 and it rents for $1,200 or whatever. It's like, well, why doesn't the person just buy it? Well, they can't. They couldn't buy it. They'd love to buy it. Their payment would be a third of what the rent would be. But so that was just incredible time to be a landlord for sure. And then you can see it kind of became more expensive to rent after that. But then, wow, to own. It became a little bit more expensive to own when things started to recover in 2013, but still worth it for people. You get the tax write-offs, you get the appreciation. It was still like, okay, we're going to do this anyway. But then when rates went up, you can see how the difference in cost to own versus renting just skyrocketed. So people rent. Because if they just simply, those who can't afford to buy are renting. And there's still so little inventory that those who can afford to buy are. That's why the market's still moving. So again, owning versus renting. In last year in February, this was home price appreciation was pretty massive. This year, down. Single family rent growth last year was high. It's still pretty good. Apartment rent growth was really high last year and has slowed down a little bit to normal, slowed to normal. And then this is a John Burns slide, single family rent growth month over month. You could see it went way up, which was super unhealthy, and then came down a little bit, but up again. Again, for the reasons a lot of people forming families would love a place to live. Can't afford to own it. These are some of the markets from John Burns' study of rent growth. And green, the dark green, is the areas with the highest rent growth of over 10%. And you can see a lot of green on the southeast side. A lot of green. So these are the areas where I like to invest because of that. Rent growth has been really strong. What is driving that rent growth in the southeast? Jobs, for sure. Weather. You have got just a ton of people, moving there from high-priced markets. Oh, insurance is awful. Yeah, it's terrible. Although we're just closing on a duplex in Florida this week, and it cash flows like $600 a month or something, and insurance is not bad on newer homes. So it's a little bit better because they're constructed for those kind of storms. So you have a ton of people from the Northeast who are able to retire now. The baby boomers, they're moving down there and everything looks cheap, even now, even with 7% rates. It's no big deal. No big deal for someone from New Jersey, right? I mean, our duplex is $450. Like what would that get you in New York? Exactly. It's just like, yeah, exactly. Like that's just a tenth of the equity in their home, right? Exactly. Yeah. So just money coming in, and the same for Texas, money coming in from all over. But you can see there's some green there. San Diego's a little bit green, and Ventura, Salt Lake, Ogden, Spokane, Boise. So there's green kind of scattered around. Places where rent went down is red, and that's actually the San Francisco Bay Area. Gosh, that's where I'm from. It's my hometown. Sad. Okay. And rent index by city, got Miami at the top. I don't invest there. Anybody invest in Miami? It's just a little too close to the storms for me. Charlotte is second, and then Cincinnati. That was surprising. Super surprising. Indianapolis. Like, what's happening in those places? Right? Why are rents going up? I think it's affordable. So that's part of it. It's affordable, but this is just me thinking, because we've been helping investors buy in these markets for years for cash flow, and it was never a growth market. And all of a sudden, they're making all this appreciation in these like, smaller cash flow markets. I think the reason is you have all the same dynamics. You have this massive group of millennials, but builders don't flock to Cincinnati. And builders don't flock to Indianapolis, although they have been. So some of these areas, like builders love to build in Atlanta, Dallas, Orlando, but they're just not getting the new inventory in these markets. So rents, there's just not enough inventory. Rents are going up and prices. So this was an article from Realtor.com that kind of explains that, like there's no national housing market, why location matters now more than ever, because just certain areas have gone down in value, but Tampa, where we invest, and they've actually gone up this past year, 5%, 10% in some area in value. Anybody follow the U-Haul? This is, it's like, you did, okay, it's like where U-Hauls are going, where the most of them are going. You see again the theme. Texas, number one, first place. That's where they're going. Florida, second. Then South Carolina, North Carolina. You just keep hearing the same things over and over again. Anyone can see what number 50 is, the last place? The very last place people are going. California. So that's fine. Let them go. I like it here. But yeah, interesting. It's because I would say people who rent a U-Haul are probably more middle class. They can't afford it here. They're not getting American Van Lines or whatever, United Van Lines. They're doing it themselves because they can't afford to live here. And they're going to Texas, and they're going to Florida. So this is me in 2005 with my husband, Rich. When we started investing out of state, we had Robert Kiyosaki on the RealWealth show, and he was explaining what was about to happen and that all these loans were going to reset and people wouldn't be able to afford it and everything was going to blow up, but not in Texas because they didn't do those loans and the prices were really affordable, and it had the strongest, this is almost 20 years ago, strongest job growth, population growth. So we went, and we were like, if it's good enough for Robert Kiyosaki, it's good enough for us. Went on a plane, went over there, and I found a really good neighborhood. It took a while, and this is really what Christine wanted me to talk about, is when you go into a market, I started by talking to realtors, and I quickly learned that they were really mostly interested in one thing, and it wasn't so much me making cash flow. So they took me to very expensive markets. And I learned really quickly that I must have looked like a complete dummy because she thought I would really like a $400,000 neighborhood. Like, oh, Californians love it here. But I knew what the average home price was, and I knew it was around $150,000, $140,000 at the time. So I thought, well, who's going to give me the information I need? Property managers. Because they are not in and out, got their commission, and they're gone. The property manager is your partner for life. And I thought, okay, this person's going to tell me the truth. So Rich and I ended up meeting, and this is the biggest advice I can give you. Your relationship should be with your property manager first and foremost if you're investing out of state. Unless you do it by yourself, I don't. I tried. I'm terrible at it. I'm way too compassionate. And if somebody broke a leg, I'm going to let them not pay their rent. So I have a property manager. And we met with 7 property managers to find out what was going on in the area and where the rental demand is, and where would they invest, and who were their happiest clients, and what kind of, how many evictions do they have, and in what areas, and where were the best rents, and so forth. The property managers are your greatest resource. But don't just talk to one, talk to as many as you can to make sure, because this is your partner. This is your business partner in this deal if you're investing away from where you live. So she brought, the one we chose brought us to Rockwall, Texas, to this neighborhood, A-class schools, beautiful. She said there's massive rental demand. How much do you think we paid for this house? 5? What was that? 150. Yeah, because you've heard it before. No, no, it was this one was 145. Rented for $1,500. This is probably worth $400 and something now. So this, I got my greatest information, and still do, from my property managers. It's my property managers who helped me through COVID. They helped me understand where the demand was and how to help our tenants and how to get the tenants what they needed to get through those times. So the most important thing, again, is that relationship. We do have a list at RealWealth on the 20 questions to ask your property manager, but the big ones are, how do you deal with, how do you do the screening? How do you choose your tenants? How do you evict them? How do you communicate with them? How many evictions do you have? How many properties do you manage? How long have you been doing it? Where does the deposit go? How many employees per property? We've seen so many property managers not know how to scale and end up blowing up and imploding because they grew too fast. So what are you going to do when you bring on more homes? A lot of property managers will buy another property management company and then get overwhelmed. So really understanding their business plan. I'm telling you, your property manager, especially if you have more than one property with that property manager, this is your partner and you want to know them well.
What kind of fees do you see?
We usually pay 8 to 10% of collected rents. It's in our list. I don't know off the top of my head what's on there. Does anybody know, any property managers here? That how many properties per person for employee to manage? I could get back to you on that, but it is on the sheet. Yes.
How did you go about cultivating the relationship with your property?
I just went there. I went and met with each one and walked through offices, had lunch.
Did you set up there? Like they knew you were coming, you have a desk, like to bring donuts. I mean, just so you weren't a nuisance.
I took them to lunch. Yeah, and I walked through everything and just, it was a little different for me because I said, make me happy. I'm going to make a lot of other people happy because we're going to refer. So they knew there was business opportunity there. But either way, you just go there, meet with them, and tell them you have a big network, I guess.
I can
Yes.
speak to that a little bit.
Yes, please.
When I first started my rentals, property management is just like networking, right? You've got to, build a relationship. And your way of building the relationship is on the phone. So I jokingly say, you have to learn to give good phone.
Got it.
You gotta learn to give good phone, people. Ask about their children. Ask about what's going on in their life. That's how you build relationships, right? So
Yeah.
do it remotely.
Do send them birthday cards, send them gifts. I mean, they work so hard. And they're taking care of your assets. Yeah.
My experience more in multifamily, but on the SFR side, I know that sometimes people use a local realtor to property manage their properties. So just want to some pros and cons of a local realtor, a local property management company, like a formal company, and then I did buy one SFR portfolio. Actually, it was one in Little Rock and one in Austin, and we used Real Property Management.
Yeah.
Some of you know, it's national. So any thoughts on a local realtor, maybe get started, a local management company, or a national management company?
When I started, there only was local realtors. That's all there was, and some were wonderful and some were terrible. Most were terrible. And now, fast forward to today, there are so many companies like Real Property Management that are franchises. So they have access to systems, they have access to portals and tech and stuff that didn't exist when I started. And this has all been sort of created over the past decade. So property management has gotten much better. I would personally go with a bigger one because they have access to the attorneys and the systems and the processes and coaching and all that. That's not to say a mom and pop isn't good, but it's just hit or miss, right? And I've seen too many situations where this would be my biggest advice is if things start to seem weird, check it out. I had people who would say, wow, I started to notice my rent was getting to me later, and then it was like a month late, and it's these kind of signals that's like, I need to get out and find out what's going on, because too many property managers grow too fast, but they don't know how to scale, and then they have to start tapping into the deposits, and I've seen it over and over again, and then they start spending money they shouldn't, and it implodes, and then everybody lost. It's happened to me. Lost 2 months rent and the deposit because the property manager spent it. So when you're with a real property management type, like a franchise, they don't get away with that very well. Yeah. Yes?
What's the length of your average lease?
The length? Yeah. I usually do 1 year. I have one that's renews 5 years every time. So it just depends, but usually 1 year. But I like to get 2 if possible. Yeah. One more question.
When you were starting off acquiring, and it's still seemingly, obviously your business is scale, but when you're doing single family homes, a lot of times we hear, you go from single family and you get multifamily or self storage or whole home. What was it about the 1 to 4 unit that kept you excited about that asset?
They're just 2 different creatures. I've done 2 big multifamily deals, and both were very difficult. So I it's very, very different. And I've just found that if you buy, to me, single family is easy, and I understand it, and I don't have to work that hard. I just have a sense for it. I like to buy nice homes in nice areas with lots of jobs, and I don't like that property you saw that was $145,000. I didn't really get a deal on it. I didn't care. I just didn't care. I knew it was a good property in a good area with good schools, and it would be worth more. It stayed rented. It's worth 3 times what I paid now. So that, get 10 of those. To me, that I just understand it. But some people would just rather be in larger assets, and that's fine. It's just a completely different way of underwriting and managing. So, you can make wealth many, many, many different ways in real estate. So we'll go through this really quickly because I know we're done. Job growth, population growth, affordability, and those are the most important things. Cash flow is king. Have reserves on hand. Don't over leverage. Choose fixed rate loans. Right markets. These are very, very important. And we'll just keep going. Yeah, so this is why we focused. I have a single family rental fund. Why we focused on Dallas is all the reasons you saw. There's some really exciting things happening in Dallas with chip manufacturing coming in that north area. And right now, there's very little competition within investor properties because people that need loans just can't make it work. So if you could pay cash and buy kind of distressed property, you're not having the competition you used to have. So, all right, we'll just go to the last ones. Sorry, I'm over. And what was that? You did all the time. Okay, all right. Do you want me to wrap? Okay. All right, so this is where you can find me if you don't know already, realwealth.com. We have a lot of information, data on different markets on our website at RealWealth, and it's all free, all downloadable. Find out about which markets we really like and referrals to teams in those markets to help you.
Give her a serious
Thank you. Nice job.